I like triggers. I like finding triggers that help me answer the question, well, why do you feel that way? I don't subscribe to the notion of, a coffee cup with a big cross on it, a Bible on your desk is going to create necessarily these opportunities. But I really believe, about the time I finished my MBA at Pepperdine University, I said, you talk about all these executives and people that that you've seen that come and do guest lectures and things, and all of them have some thread that they talk about. And me, what really just struck me back in 1995 was leave people better than you found them. And I know where I got that, and I got to share with people. They said, where did you get that? And I said, well, let me tell you about a Jewish carpenter that made that his life story. Oh, you're a Christian. Well, I don't think I ever would have got to that point just with a coffee cup and a cross and a Bible sitting in the desk. Well, those are noble things to do. But what the video talked about, that's really honestly how I feel. When people come to work for me, I'll say to them, I said, look, if you want to be challenged and you want to grow and you want to develop to the next promotion, I'm not waiting for you to ask for the promotion. I'm challenging you that if this organization is going to grow, we need you to get to the next promotion. And if you do these things, I promise I'll leave you better than I found you. Because promotions are not tenure. This is not the union. This is what it's all about. And then people ask me, why do you care? And it would bridge over to why you care. And so when they asked me to do this, I was thinking about, do you come and talk about war stories? I've been to a lot of good, fantastic presentations by Christian men and women. They talk about their career, the things that they were able to accomplish, what they were able to influence, and how they got over certain, valleys or crossed the canyon, got over the hill, whatever metaphor you like, and how faith played a part of that. But they really were talking about their career going all the way through. And then they got to the end and they said, but here, let me give you a few tips in the last 7 minutes. And at the end of the 7 minutes, I would sit there and say, wow, I really wish we could have flipped that over and do 7 minutes of what you've done and then 23 minutes of some tips that I could take away, because I found those incredibly valuable. So when Gary called me, I said, Gary, I'm going to flip it over, right? I'll do less than 7 minutes on me, but then I want to talk about these tips and take those last 7 minutes, make it into 23 minutes, if that's okay. So it's like a bonus. You only get to hear, wonderful things about where you've been for a little while, and then we're going to stretch those tips out, hopefully in about 20 minutes. When I left Pepperdine, I went to work for a little tiny company called California Amplifier. You don't know what that is, but if you've seen a direct TV dish and there's a little thing on the end of it sitting out there in the houses, you've seen it. That's a little amplifier in there. The signal on that dish gets amplified, sent into the house. We bid and made those. And I thought it was so cool that we were in this secret bid in 1994 with Hughes, this division of General Motors that was building this thing called direct television that was going to compete with cable. And I thought that was pretty cool. And that entrepreneurial spirit that came across as we were bidding and trying to win that, and we won a portion of it, really struck me. So I had a thing, by the way, that became DirecTV. And 1994, so it did okay. So I got to see that launch. I thought that was pretty cool, even though we were just a little tiny part of it, and RCA and Thompson and Hughes and all these companies were all part of that. But I really caught the bug. I said, wow, isn't that interesting, disrupting the cable industry and being part of this little tiny company out in Camarillo, California that won the bid to provide one of 20 key components that was in this thing. So I thought that was really cool. My first job out of college had been at LA Cellular that all your parents used. It was in Southern California, fourth cellular phone company in the United States. And a boss I had there called me as I was at California Amplifier some years later. And he said, hey, you were an honest, hardworking guy, and I want to talk to you about something. That's how the call started. How you been? What's going on? Listen, here's what I want to talk to you. You were an honest, hardworking guy, and I want to talk to you about something. And I prided myself on that. I said, okay, I guess that's good to be known for those things. And he recruited me to go work for Sprint. This is when Sprint was a long-distance company, only a long-distance company. Most of you don't go back that far. A couple of us do. I won't point you out. And we've just paid $5 billion to the federal government to get licensed to be a wireless company. And we're going to compete with cellular phones. wow, another disruption. That sounds like fun. I got to be part of a little tiny company making a little part for DirecTV. I think this will be fun. So I said, okay, let's do it. Great, you're employee number 31. So I'm like, okay. And so I got to be part of that. And I built a rate plan that put long distance and everything together, eliminated roaming, eliminated peak off peak, also eliminated much of the excess profit that was in the telecommunications sector at the time, which some people weren't thrilled about. But what it did is it gave you what you have today as the all-in-one rate plan. So I love doing that. And then Sprint gave me an opportunity to run an incubator. And one of the companies that incubated was a company named Jamdat Mobile that was the first company to commercially make games for mobile phones. Now I think there's a million companies doing that probably, if you count every pair of coders that are in a garage someplace. But through this all, the disruption I was able to bring to things I thought was kind of cool in a good way, disrupting in a good way. And all through that time, you know, I really got my head around this thing called the circle of trust. Even before that movie, Robert De Niro, Circle of Trust, you know, some of you may have seen that. You're all at Biola and you're under that agreement, so don't raise your hands if you happen to have seen that. You're not supposed to have. The whole element there was him talking to his future son-in-law about this circle of trust. And I saw this, and so here's the part that you can take away. On one side, you've got people who line up behind the leader. On the other side, you got people that line up behind the company. Let me explain what I mean. Over here, actually we'll talk about it in a way that maybe we all understand. You know, you're part of a church, and maybe it's a mega church, and you have people who are like, I'm all behind the pastor. You don't know what he goes through. You don't know what his life is like. You don't know what's going on, you know, and they're completely behind that pastor, which is a good thing to support the pastor. Then you have other people who are like, listen, the church was here before the pastor was here. This institution's been around for a while, and there's a lot of elders and people that have supported this. So how many have heard that kind of notions at a church you're part of? Okay. And people say, isn't it unfortunate that our church has become political? Well, guess what? That same thing you see there, you're going to see in the marketplace. And I'm going to give you some tools to force your faith forward, because I believe we're at a time where we need to force our faith forward. And witnessing in the break room when somebody's had a tragedy in their family is fantastic, and we need to be there. And those are moments that matter, that allow us to share our faith and allow to bridge humanity with the wonderful answer that is Jesus Christ and provide testimony. But there's another way to force your way forward in a way that the marketplace is begging for. This past week, I got a little notification, Wall Street Journal, that they published the 2019 rankings of colleges. How many people saw it? It's a pretty big deal. Pretty big deal. In Texas, it's a pretty big deal. I'm in Dallas, Texas now, and Rice University is beloved. Now, they beloved their Longhorns and they really like A&M, but the high-end engineers love the fact that Rice is now ranked number 14. They care deeply about these things. And what's tremendously interesting about that whole thing that I saw, going back to the article, after I was listening to my friends cheer, you see, Rice is now number 14. I went to number 14 university. Calm down. You don't have a football team. You know, it's like these A&M and people are tailgating and they're celebrating, and you're just celebrating your ranking. But what was interesting in there, if you read it, there's a little part in there that talked about that how students, parents, and faculty are bemoaning that ethics are not being taught. Isn't that interesting? And why are they bemoaning that? Just look at the headlines. They don't like the outcome, but they don't care to talk about the inputs. Right? My definition of liberals and conservatives is, and I hate to do it this way, but liberals are at the bottom of the river saying, look at all this pollution. We need to make a $10 trillion filter here at the bottom of this river so that on the other side from where I'm standing, this river can be filtered. The conservatives go up and go, wait, what caused that? And why don't we change behavior? And they're like, no, you can't interfere with those people. They're living their lives in freedom. You see that? So right now, you've even got parents, faculty, and students that are increasingly talking about the need for ethics. And I believe you need to force your faith forward. And this is how I've done it. And I've got scars on my back to show it, because this doesn't always go as well as you might hope. So over here, you support the leader. And I'm going to give you a real life example. How many people a year ago followed the saga of Uber? It was hard to miss. It was headlines. Did everybody see where it started? It started with a female engineer and getting encouraged by her friend to write a memorandum of the sexism and things and harassment that were going on, and how this company that was being heralded as, at that time, the most valuable private company in history, with a valuation that topped 60 billion with a B at that time, encouraged her, and this friend got her to send it to the Wall Street Journal. And they did. They researched it, and they called her, and they called people, they got it validated, and they published it in the journal. And you had people on one side who were behind the CEO, Travis. Listen, nobody knows what Travis has gone through. He built this company, reached into his pocket, seeded the money, went out and did it, recruited people, is working 20-hour days, is doing all this thing, and no one seems to understand that. And this engineer is a 1 in 100 thing. If something's going on, we need to fix it. But people shouldn't be getting in our stuff. On this side, you had people, well, the venture capitalists put money into this, and the board, even Arianna Huffington's on the board, and they're very concerned about this. This is out in public now. This needs to be taken care of. And by the way, as soon as he took hundreds of millions of dollars in venture capital, the company is what matters. The company outlives any person. This has got values. I'm here with the board. And a lot of times you would ask, well, where were you both? Where were you both when the things were happening to this engineer and when the culture of the company was collapsing? We were busy building $1 billion company. We're busy running a church. And what happens is, that I've seen with my own eyes, is you have two. This side, I call him the loyalist. I'm loyal to Travis. Busted his to get this company going. I'm all about the company. The stakeholders in the company are what's important. This company, there are things here that you don't understand that go beyond any one person. Well, how do you stand in the middle? Because these people believe with every ounce of their being, about half of them believe they're right. The other half are being political and they don't necessarily believe it. And these people, I call them noblemen. They're trying to keep themselves clean and give themselves an excuse not to cross into the green area where it's dirty and tough and difficult, but needs men and women to stand up with fiber of character and integrity on behalf of, you need to change and the company needs to survive, but it's all of us here together, and somebody's got to stand up and somebody's got to be here. And what you saw in this, did you see how that shook out? Finally, the board, unable to get an ounce of cooperation out of the Loyalist and Travis, did you see who they hired? They hired Eric Holder to run the investigation. Who's Eric Holder? Ex-Attorney General under the Obama administration. You had a company situation that was so heavy that the Attorney General of a country was brought in to conduct the investigation. And there were two voices on the board, an investor named Bill Gurley and Arianna Huffington, who both cared deeply about getting it right, regardless of what you think about any of the moral positions they held. They both did care deeply about getting it right. But what they also found, there was hardly anybody in the middle, because people had run to the sides, partly because the Loyalists were going to squash anybody that attempted to get into the middle. And these folks, if any of these guys stepped out of it and walked over here, I've been waiting for you to step forward. We have something for you. And so consequently, they were stuck on both sides. This happens in churches, and I've seen this happen in companies, the ones that have played out, and I've seen it happen in companies that I was a part of. I've been both, and in both times I'm wrong. Dead wrong. Because over here, you can live over here and say, I just want to keep myself clean, and I want to keep myself safe, and I don't want to draw fire, and I'm being honest, I'm full of integrity, I'm praying about the company, I'm praying about the leader, but you are in the middle of something, and you're all here at an institution that is driving character and leadership. The mentoring program for the MBA the MBAs that are here and the people that are brought in, this is character and integrity. And it's not all, let me tell you about my wonderful career and all the wonderful things I've done. There are places to stand in the gap. We talk about it. So this is what I've done. When I go in now, I sit down and have a conversation. I say, I want you to know something. Give yourself a couple months, but do it this way. Spend a couple months showing them your character, your integrity, but more importantly, your dedication and the quality of your work. That you don't use your faith, to create excuses for yourself. I've had Christians that worked for me that wanted, well, day before Thanksgiving, we were going to take the early flight and everything, and they used the faith in this relationship point there, and I'm like, no, everybody's leaving at noon. That's what we're doing. Everybody, that's what we're going to do. And we all talked about that's how we're going to run the Thanksgiving break. And people ask for favors. And so I set myself apart from that when I say, give it your absolute best in any new gig, your absolute best. And about 90 days in, when they've had a chance to see your character, your integrity, the quality of your work, your dedication, all those things that go with it. Because the product of your work is first. That's what you're paid to do. You're paid to deliver the quality and that you're paid to deliver. And along the way, you do it with such style and grace that you make them curious about you in other ways. And on that 90th day, come in and sit down and have the following conversation. Hi.
How are you?
What's your name?
James.
James? Hi, James. Listen, I've enjoyed these first 90 days getting to know you and working for you. And I hope that I've been delivering what you expected. I think I have, because I've been checking in with you about the projects and things we've done. And I want to tell you something, because I want you to know about it now. And I want you to call me out if you ever see it different. What's that? Is something wrong, Tom? No. Is there something up? Are you happy in your position? Yeah, I am. I want you to know this. I am loyal to you and your leadership because I feel not only do I owe it to you because you've put me in this position, but I believe that I am spiritually called to this level of loyalty. Second, I'm also called to protect the company and the stakeholders, it's everything's here, through you and through our department. Now remember, I'm early stage companies, but I think this works broader than that. And I want you to know that if I ever have a question, I'm going to come to you. I've been part of organizations where gossip and political infighting have come forth, and I just want you to know, wait a minute, have you seen something, Tom? No, actually I haven't. Is there something up? Are you about to tell me something? No. We have an ombudsman now. Maybe we can get, no, you don't have to get involved. I want you to know. This is a really weird conversation. I want you to know where I stand, and I want you to know that I'm in the middle before you ever have to guess. And if there's ever something that I have a question about, I'm going to come to you first. I'm not going to talk about it with peers. I'm going to come to you first and say, I don't understand. Or can you elaborate on this? Or can you explain this to me? Now, I'm going to do that first, James. But I'm also going to protect the company. And if I ever come to you and I'm not satisfied with the answer, I'll tell you I'm not satisfied with the answer, or I'll tell you how I feel. Now, you may think that's tough to do. Well, what if they fire you? What if this is a person that is going to be really worried about that day? Well, that day is not today. That day is maybe, hopefully not, sometime off in the future. Here's where it hit the road. I sat in a conference room, second board meeting, and I listened to the CEO present numbers with which I was unfamiliar, with numbers that I think others were unfamiliar. Not like this, but like this, rounding off the edges, rounding up, painting a big future. And later I said, we're having a really great year, and the numbers are the numbers. I said, we should just let the yes be yes and the no be no. And we shouldn't we? I'm just curious, is there something with the board that maybe I'm unfamiliar with? No. They expect enthusiasm. I said, yeah, but that's a forecast, respectfully. And I had a very good conversation today. It ended actually very well. And I said, well, you know, some of them, you know, be careful what you say to people who write things down. You know, so we've got our forecast, but then we also have our enthusiasm, which has been duly noted. So, you know, we're going to be held to that. And that moment, you know, there wasn't an impending crisis, but at that moment, there was something kind of happened in that relationship. And I think it was a little bit of trust. And nobody said, oh my gosh, you're the most incredible, wonderful, integrous person I've ever met. No, it wasn't that at all. I said, I'm just curious, was there something in there that maybe that I don't know about? Was there a conversation that happened ahead of time that maybe led to this presentation? Because that's not what CFO and everybody else had assembled, even our most enthusiastic forecast. And you go in and talk about it. Because nobody is standing in the middle. Nobody is standing in the middle. And I firmly believe that the people that have the character and integrity to stand in the middle are the people who fearlessly walk with that character and integrity. And the world is looking for it. They're looking for it. They don't want to be lectured about their moral faith, but they want to be able to trust the people that are around them in their job and their company. It's kind of a weird land to sit in. That on one hand, they would absolutely flip out to talk about any of the very real moral issues. But on the other hand, they really want things to go well, and they want to be able to trust people to do the right thing. This is why the Wall Street Journal is mentioning comments from people saying, why don't they teach more ethics in them? Well, why don't you teach ethics in your children before you send them off to college? You know, why are we asking these questions now? We're at the bottom of the river. Let's go up to the top of the river and ask why it's getting polluted in the first place. You know, let's not build $1 billion filter here. You know, and this has been my experience. And the toughest thing you'll do, and the best thing that you will do, is to early on commit to, that you're going to be right there in the middle. If you took a look at what happened to Uber, it was really ugly. More people than just Travis left. You look at the people that left after. An individual that was brought in to run HR was gone within moments of the new CEO, Dara, being there. Basically says, here's the keys, enjoy yourself, and departed. And said, this is so much bigger. This isn't over. This is so much bigger. And he's discovered that. And now we see Uber even running TV ads. You've seen it this year's NFL season. There's happy little people getting in and out of cars, and they say they're the new Uber. And you see Wells Fargo saying we're the new Wells Fargo. And then I believe it was Thursday of last week, Wells Fargo dismissed another very senior executive. Did anybody see that? No? Am I the only one that reads the journal? Maybe I'm the only one left. And so you can see these issues that are deeper. And the most difficult place for you to be is going to be right here. And you've got two choices every day. You can take the safe choice and line up behind the leader in fear because you don't want to get fired, or you don't want to have hard conversations, or you're just kind of stuffed, so you feel. Or you can line up over here and you say, man, when the shooting starts, I want to make sure people know that I was a nobleman and I was over here and I wasn't part of any of this. I was no part of any of that, right? If you know anything about post-World War II and the trials that happened, you know that one of the defenses was, I was just following orders. What was that? Well, I wasn't behind Adolf. I was just following orders from my army, from my country. I was just following orders. You see it throughout history, and there's very few people that have the intestinal fortitude to sit in the middle. And I'm going to talk about one thing here, because there's another thing that's very, very close to my heart, and that is, you know, spending in debt. And I encourage everybody that has ever worked for me, that I've ever been able to have personal conversations with, say, do you have, because remember, we're talking early stage companies. Before you think about this company, do you have a 3-month salary fund and small savings account you forget about? And most people say no. And I said, well, before I would think about working for an early stage company, I'd make sure that's there and keep adding to it. Because, you know, this isn't General Electric where no one gets laid off. That's a joke. Anybody read Barron's? I moved to Barron's because none of you read the journal. And this is a real question I ask, because that stress that you put yourself under, I've had people tell me, well, Tom, that's easy to say, but you know, I've got barely maybe a month and a half in a savings account. I'm like, well, then guess what? Then you need to work on that. You need to work on the stewardship so that you would be unafraid to do this. God's your provider. I believe your network of things should be out there to help you in time of strife. And I hope you wouldn't compromise your integrity because you're afraid to get fired because you only have, 2 months in the bank. What a terrible way to compromise an opportunity to share with people about where you know, number one, who's your provider, number two, where you get your hope, and number three, this is my integrity and this is my character, and they're not for sale. And if I get fired here and I have to go do something else, I'll have to go do something else. God didn't say it would be easy. And as you walk outside, this person will accidentally run into you at Starbucks and says, I need to hire you. Maybe something like that happens. But in the greater case, sometimes then it tests our patience, it tests our dedication, it tests our faith in other ways. But I always ask people that question before you go to work for an early stage company, but it's applicable across the spectrum. It's applicable far wider. Because standing in the middle is difficult, it's tough, but there's a need out there and we're being called to it. You just have to be able to hear it. You have to be able to listen for it and see it. And maybe after 30 years in business, I can hear it a little bit better. Somewhere there's this book that's all those opening stories they use at sermons. You know the ones I'm talking about? You're like, I think I heard that story 7 years ago. How did he say that happened this week? You know the ones I'm talking about. And it's like, there's got to be a book somewhere. Well, and one that I had heard, now I'm going to repeat, but it didn't happen to me, was an American Indian is in New York with a lobbying group. And he's with a friend, and they're walking, and he listened to it, and he says, oh, those are starlings. He says, they're what? Those birds right there are starlings. You can't hear them? And they look up there, and there's like 10 of them up there on a wire. Yeah, they're starlings. How did you notice that? He said, it's all what you listen for. Give me a few coins. So he gives him a few coins, and he goes to the corner where the people wait for the light to change, and he drops the coins on the pavement. Everybody's head turns around and looks down. And he said, it's all what you're listening for. And so I really believe that after 30 years, maybe I'm just listening for and I'm seeing these things more clearly than I would have seen when I was 26 and working a little tiny company, really excited about changing what's going on and launching DirecTV. But I'll tell you, you're needed in the middle. You're needed right there in the middle. And people need to hear from you about your integrity, and then they're going to ask you where it comes from. But your commitment to be there, to support them, but also the company, it's critical. And it's, I won't even go into churches because I've been part of things that were in a church. I've been here and I was wrong, and it wasn't big moral failing or anything like that. It was just, leadership wasn't being nurtured. And, I had a friendship, so I protected the friendship. But the greater good was served with making a change in leadership. And there was nothing financial. There was nothing going on. It was just, for the church to grow and the staff to be properly built up and things like this. There was different things in leadership that I needed that I didn't see, that I didn't have in the cards that were in front of me. And I was just, you don't know what he goes through. And I was just a protector. So I've been there. I was a loyalist. And later, I found out, what? Wow, there's a lot I didn't know. And I got into some real straight conversations with people just being a loyalist. And like I say, this isn't some terrible, terrible thing where there was a moral failing, thank goodness. It was a thing where, for this church to grow, it's time to make a change in leadership and for us to do some things here. And it was just the right thing for everybody. And praise God, everybody afterwards thrived in different locations. But I've been there. And I've been tempted to be there, young in my career, just scared to death. Oh, I'm so blessed to have this job. Why would I do anything to mess it up? But that's middle where it needs to be.
Discover who you're called to be at Biola University, a leading Christ-centered university in Los Angeles, with programs on campus and online. Subscribe for more of our videos and learn more at biola.edu.